I love pastor's daughter. But God said no. David Carter sat across from me in the coffee shop, his hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. His eyes held a distant look, the kind that comes from revisiting painful memories. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I need to tell someone this story," he said. "Maybe it'll help somebody else avoid the mistake I made. Maybe it'll save someone from the heartbreak of loving what God never intended for them." And so he told me everything. This is David's story, a story of love, faith, and the painful lesson that sometimes God's greatest blessings come disguised as his most devastating denials. David was 24 when he first walked through the doors of Riverside Community Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Fresh out of college with an architecture degree and a new job at a prestigious downtown firm, he was full of dreams and ambition. But more than success, David wanted to build his life on a solid foundation. He wanted a church home. Riverside Community Church seemed perfect from the moment he stepped inside. The building itself was beautiful, a historic structure with stained glass windows that cast rainbow patterns across the wooden pews. But it was the people who made it special. Pastor John Mitchell greeted every visitor personally, his warm handshake and genuine smile making newcomers feel like family instantly. "Welcome to Riverside," Pastor Mitchell had said that first Sunday, gripping David's hand firmly. "We're glad God brought you through our doors." David joined quickly, diving into church activities with enthusiasm. He volunteered with the youth group, attended Wednesday night Bible studies, and helped with the men's breakfast ministry. Within weeks, Riverside felt like home. He was making friends, growing in his faith, and finding his place in this new city. But everything changed the Sunday he really noticed Sarah Mitchell. He had seen her before, of course. She was the worship leader, leading the congregation in praise songs every Sunday morning. But David had been so focused on settling in, on finding his footing, that he hadn't really looked at her. Not until that particular Sunday when something shifted. Sarah was 22, with long brown hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes that seemed to sparkle with genuine joy when she sang. But it wasn't her beauty that caught David's attention that morning. It was something deeper. As she led worship, David noticed how she closed her eyes during certain lyrics, how her voice trembled with emotion when she sang about God's faithfulness, how she seemed completely lost in genuine worship rather than performance. She really means it, David thought to himself. She's not just singing, she's worshiping. After the service, David lingered in the sanctuary longer than usual, helping stack chairs for the next service. Sarah was unplugging microphones on the stage when her father called her over. "Sarah, honey, come meet one of our newest members," Pastor Mitchell said, waving her over to where he stood with David. She bounded over with natural enthusiasm, her smile warm and welcoming. "Hi, you're David, right? Dad mentioned you've been helping with the youth group." "That's awesome." David was struck by how she remembered his name. "Yeah, that's me and you're Sarah. Your voice is... you lead worship beautifully." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Thank you. But it's all God. I'm just the instrument. So, how are you liking Charleston? Dad said you moved here for work." They talked for 20 minutes, standing right there in the sanctuary while people milled around them. David learned that Sarah was a nursing student at the local college, that she volunteered at a free clinic on weekends, and that she had a younger brother named Joshua who was 15, and a complete handful but the sweetest kid alive. When Sarah finally excused herself to help her mother in the church kitchen, David felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope connection, the sense that he'd just met someone truly special. Over the next few months, David and Sarah's friendship grew naturally. They were both heavily involved in church activities, so they saw each other constantly. They served together at the youth group lock-ins, worked side by side at the church food pantry, and often ended up in the same small group discussions during Bible study. David was careful not to be too forward. Sarah was the pastor's daughter, after all, and he knew that came with a different set of expectations and scrutiny. Every young man in church probably had a crush on her at some point. He didn't want to be just another guy chasing the worship leader, but their friendship deepened despite his caution. "I saw you today," David mentioned one Wednesday evening after Bible study. They were helping fold chairs in the fellowship hall, one of the last people still there. "Where?" Sarah asked, confused. "Downtown, near the convenience store on Market Street. There was a homeless man sitting outside. and it started pouring rain. You gave him your umbrella and just stood there getting soaked. Oh, you saw that? Sarah's cheeks flushed pink. I did. Most people would have just hurried past. You didn't even hesitate. She shrugged, looking embarrassed. Jesus said, whatever we do for the least of these, we do for him. That man needed the umbrella more than I did. I was only walking to my car. It was at that exact moment that David knew he was in love with her. Not just attracted, not just interested, truly, deeply in love. Sarah Mitchell had a heart that reflected Christ in ways that took his breath away. But he said nothing, not yet. By the time autumn arrived, David had been attending Riverside for 8 months. His job was going well. He had formed solid friendships within the church, and his faith had grown deeper through Pastor Mitchell's teaching. But Sarah occupied his thoughts more than he cared to admit. He prayed about it constantly. God, is this from you? Am I supposed to pursue this? Please show me clearly. The signs seemed positive. Sarah went out of her way to talk to him. She saved him seats at church events. Once, she even brought him homemade cookies after he mentioned offhandedly that he'd been working late on a big project. Finally, David decided to be intentional. He asked Sarah to coffee. Just as friends? She asked, a teasing smile on her lips. Well, David said carefully, as friends who might want to see if there could be something more. If that's okay with you. Sarah's smile widened. That's very okay with me, David Carter. That first coffee date lasted 4 hours. They talked about everything. Their childhoods, their dreams, their favorite books and movies, their testimonies of faith. David learned that Sarah had given her life to Christ at age 7, that she wanted to be a pediatric nurse because she loved working with children, and that her favorite worship song was Great Are You, Lord, because it reminded her of God's faithfulness during her grandmother's final days. My Nana was everything to me, Sarah said softly, her eyes distant. When she was dying of cancer, I was only 16. I was so angry at God, I couldn't understand why he would take someone so good, someone who loved him so much. But Nana, she never wavered. Even in pain, even scared, she would sing that song. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. She taught me that worship isn't just for the good times. It's especially for the hard times. David reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She sounds like an incredible woman. I'm sorry you lost her. Thank you, Sarah whispered. But I didn't really lose her. I know exactly where she is, and I'll see her again. They started officially dating after that, with Pastor Mitchell's blessing. David had gone to him first. The way he felt was respectful and proper. Pastor Mitchell, I'd like your permission to take Sarah on a date, David had said, nervous but determined. The pastor studied him for a long moment. You're a good man, David. I've watched you these past months. You serve faithfully, you love the Lord, and you treat people with kindness. But Sarah is my daughter. She's precious to me and to God. So I'm going to ask you straight. What are your intentions? Honorable ones, sir, David replied. I care about Sarah deeply. I'd like the opportunity to get to know her better, to see if this could lead to something permanent. I'm not interested in casual dating. I'm looking for a wife, and I believe Sarah might be the woman God has for me. Pastor Mitchell nodded slowly. I appreciate your honesty and your respect in coming to me first. You have my blessing to pursue my daughter. But David, be sure. Be very sure this is God's will and not just your own desires. The two can feel very similar, but they're not the same thing. Yes, sir. I'm praying about it every day. Good, keep praying. And keep seeking God's face, not just his hand. The next 6 months were the happiest of David's life. He and Sarah became inseparable. They went to movies, took long walks through Charleston's historic district, had picnics by the harbor, and spent countless evenings just talking about life and faith and their futures. Sarah was everything David had ever wanted. She was kind without being weak, strong without being harsh, faithful without being self-righteous. She challenged him to be a better man, a better Christian. When he got discouraged about work, she reminded him of God's faithfulness. When he struggled with pride over a successful project, she gently redirected his focus to gratitude. Their relationship was built on faith. They attended church together, prayed together, studied the Bible together. David had never experienced anything like it. A relationship where Christ was truly at the center, not just a decoration on the edges. I could see myself marrying you, David told her one evening as they sat on a bench overlooking the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah turned to him, her eyes shining. Really? Really. Sarah Mitchell, you're the most incredible woman I've ever met. You make me want to be the man God created me to be. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You make me better too, David. I thank God for bringing you to Riverside. Everything seemed perfect. David's career was thriving. He'd just been promoted to senior architect and was leading his first major project. The church loved seeing them together. Pastor Mitchell had started making jokes about wedding bells. Even Sarah's mother had pulled David aside once to say, "You're good for my daughter. We're blessed to have you in our family." David started looking at engagement rings. He planned the proposal carefully. He would ask her on the anniversary of their first date, at the same coffee shop where they'd spent those first 4 hours together. He had already asked Pastor Mitchell for his blessing to propose, and the pastor had given it enthusiastically. "I'd be honored to have you as my son-in-law," Pastor Mitchell had said, embracing David warmly. Everything was falling into place. David felt certain, absolutely certain, that Sarah was God's will for his life. But God was about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. It started small. Just a whisper in David's spirit during his morning devotions. A quiet unease he couldn't quite name. He was reading in Proverbs, and a verse seemed to jump off the page. "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." David frowned at the verse. It felt oddly pointed, as if God was trying to tell him something. But what? Everything in his life was good. Great, even. He shook it off and went about his day. The second warning came during a men's prayer breakfast at church. The guest speaker, an elderly minister named Pastor James, who had been in ministry for 40 years, spoke about knowing God's will versus following your own desires. "Men, listen to me," Pastor James said, his voice grave. "The enemy's greatest trick isn't making you do something obviously evil. It's making you pursue something good that God never intended for you. You can be dating a godly woman, serving in ministry, reading your Bible daily, and still be outside of God's perfect will. Because sometimes God's calling for your life requires sacrifice. It requires you to lay down even the good things so you can receive the best things." David shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Why did that feel so personal? The third warning came from his own prayer life. David had always been disciplined about his quiet time with God, but lately, he noticed something disturbing. He was praying more about Sarah than he was praying about seeking God's face. His prayers had become a list of requests about their relationship, rather than genuine communion with his Creator. One night, frustrated with himself, David fell on his face before God. "Lord, I need to hear from you clearly. I love Sarah. I want to marry her. But I need to know, is this your will? Really truly your will, or is this just what I want?" The response wasn't audible, but it was unmistakable. Deep in his spirit, David felt God say, "Ask me to show you clearly, even if it hurts. Ask me for truth, not comfort." David hesitated. Did he really want to know if the answer was no? Could he handle it if God said Sarah wasn't the one? But his love for God, the foundation of his faith, was stronger than his fear. "Okay, Lord," David prayed, his voice shaking. "Show me the truth. I don't want my will. I want yours. Even if it breaks my heart, I need to know what you want." The answer came 2 weeks later in the most unexpected way. Important notice: the audience are Black American. David was at a regional church conference in Columbia, South Carolina, sent by Pastor Mitchell to represent Riverside at a weekend gathering of churches from across the state. Sarah had stayed behind because she had exams at nursing school. On Saturday evening, there was a worship service followed by a time of prayer ministry. David went forward for prayer, not because anything was specifically wrong, but because he wanted to seek God's direction for his upcoming proposal. He was planning to ask Sarah to marry him in just 3 weeks. An older woman named Sister Patricia prayed over him. She knew nothing about him except his first name. But as she began to pray, her words became specific, uncomfortably specific. "Father, I thank you for this young man and his sincere heart," she prayed. "But Lord, I sense you're trying to get his attention about something. There's a relationship. Lord, you're saying this isn't the path. I see a door that looks beautiful, but God, you're saying it's not the door you've opened. You're saying if he walks through it, he'll miss the calling you have on his life. God, give him courage, give him strength. Help him trust you more than he trusts his feelings." David's eyes flew open. His heart was racing. How could she know? After the prayer, he pulled Sister Patricia aside. "Ma'am, what you said, can you explain more?" She looked at him with kind but serious eyes. "Son, I don't know your specific situation, but the Holy Spirit was very clear. You're about to make a decision that will take you out of God's perfect will. It's not that what you're choosing is evil, it's actually good. But it's not God's best for you. And if you proceed, you'll spend years in a wilderness you were never meant to walk through. David felt like he couldn't breathe. But I've prayed about this. I've asked God repeatedly. I've looked for signs, and everything seemed to line up. Sometimes we hear what we want to hear, she said gently. Sometimes we interpret circumstances through the lens of our desires, rather than through discernment. Tell me, when you pray, do you ask God what he wants? Or do you ask him to bless what you've already decided? The question hit David like a physical blow. She was right. He had been asking God to bless his relationship with Sarah, to make it work, to confirm it. But had he ever genuinely asked God if he should be in the relationship at all? Had he ever been willing to hear no? What should I do? David asked, his voice breaking. You should go home and get on your face before God with complete honesty, Sister Patricia said. No manipulation, no bargaining, no trying to convince him. Just surrender. Tell him you want his will more than you want your happiness. And then wait, listen. He'll speak. David drove back to Charleston that night instead of waiting until morning. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except the prayer Sister Patricia had spoken over him. His mind was in turmoil. It was past midnight when he got home to his apartment. He didn't even turn on the lights. He just dropped to his knees in his living room and began to pray. God, I need you to speak to me. Please, I love Sarah so much. She's everything I've ever wanted. She loves you. She's kind. She's perfect for me. How can this not be your will? We're equally yoked. We serve you together. Her father blessed this relationship. What am I missing? Silence. David prayed for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Tears streamed down his face. God, I don't understand. Please help me understand. And then, in the quiet of that dark night, God began to speak. Not audibly, but so clearly that David couldn't deny it. David, I love you and I love Sarah. But I have different paths for each of you. I've called you to international missions, to design and build churches and schools in places where my name is barely known. This calling will require sacrifice, danger, years away from comfort. Sarah's calling is here in Charleston, serving the sick and the suffering in her community. Her heart is for local ministry, for putting down roots. If you marry her, one of you will have to abandon the calling I've placed on your life. Can you ask her to leave everything for a mission field she's not called to? Can you abandon the nations I've laid on your heart to stay in comfort? David's breath caught. Missions. Foreign missions. He had felt that pull years ago, back in college, but he had pushed it aside when he took the architecture job in Charleston. He'd told himself he could serve God right here, that he didn't need to go overseas. But had he been running from God's call? Lord, I can learn to be content here, David prayed desperately. I can serve you in Charleston. I don't have to go overseas, but you're called to go. I designed you for this. Your skills, your gifts, your heart, they're meant for the nations. And Sarah is designed for something equally important, but different. If you marry her, you'll both end up living half lives, always wondering what you missed. Don't you love her enough to let her fulfill her calling? Don't you love me enough to fulfill yours? David sobbed. The truth was devastating but undeniable. God was right. Sarah had always talked about her dream of working at Charleston General Hospital, of serving her community for the long term. She wanted to be near her family, to eventually raise children close to her parents. David had heard her say it dozens of times, but he'd assumed she would change her mind for him. And David had buried his missions calling so deep that he'd almost forgotten it. But now that God was bringing it back to the surface, David couldn't deny it. That restlessness he sometimes felt, that sense that his work in Charleston, while good, wasn't quite right, it all made sense now. But God, I love her, David whispered into the darkness. I know you do, but you love the idea of her in your life more than you love my plan for both of your lives. Trust me, David. Trust that my ways are higher than yours. David wept until he had no tears left. And then, in brokenness and surrender, he prayed the hardest prayer of his life. Okay, God. I trust you. I don't understand, but I trust you. Your will, not mine. Telling Sarah was the hardest thing David had ever done. He waited until Monday evening. They met at their favorite spot by the harbor, where they'd had so many beautiful conversations. The sun was setting, just like it had been the night David told her he could see himself marrying her. The cruel irony wasn't lost on him. "You're scaring me," Sarah said, reading his expression. "David, what's wrong?" He took her hands in his, memorizing the feel of them, knowing this was the last time he'd hold them this way. "Sarah, I love you. Please know that everything I'm about to say comes from a place of love." "You're breaking up with me." Her voice was flat, shocked. "I have to. Not because I don't love you. Not because there's someone else. Not because you did anything wrong, but because God has made it clear to me that we're not meant to be together." Sarah pulled her hands away, tears already streaming down her face. "What? We've been praying about this." "What? How?" "We've been so careful to honor God in our relationship. My father blessed this." I know. And that's what made it so easy to convince myself this was right. But Sarah, I went to that conference this weekend, and God spoke to me clearly. He showed me that I've been called to foreign missions, to build and design churches and schools overseas. It's a calling I've been running from, but I can't run anymore. And you're called to be here. Your heart is for Charleston, for your community, for serving here. Neither of those callings is wrong, but they're not compatible. So we compromise, Sarah said desperately. You can do missions trips and come back, or I can go with you. I can be flexible. But you're not called to that, Sarah. And asking you to abandon your calling for mine isn't love. It's selfishness. Just like me abandoning my calling for you would be disobedience to God. Sarah stood up, pacing, her arms wrapped around herself. I don't accept this. We can pray more. We can seek counsel. Maybe you heard wrong. I didn't hear wrong. David's voice was firm but gentle. I've been seeking God about this, truly seeking him, and he's been crystal clear. We're not meant for marriage, and as much as it destroys me to say this, I have to obey God rather than follow my heart. So that's it? Sarah's voice broke. You're just giving up on us? I'm not giving up. I'm letting go. There's a difference. I'm trusting that God has something better for both of us, even though I can't see it right now. Sarah sank back onto the bench, sobbing. David wanted to comfort her, to hold her, but he knew it would only make this harder. After a long moment, she looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. Do you really believe this is God? She asked. With everything in me. Then I hate it, she whispered. But I trust God too, even when I don't understand. They sat in silence for a while, grieving together. Finally, Sarah stood. I need to go. I can't do this anymore tonight. Sarah, please, David, just let me go. He watched her walk away, his heart shattering with every step she took. When she disappeared from view, David put his face in his hands and wept. Face in his hands and wept.